In this video, I'm talking about one of the greatest exercises to ever exist, the push-up. I want to talk about this exercise in detail because it's usually something that isn't taught to us. We basically reach a point in our lives where we can start to bang out push-ups and we just go ahead with whatever form our body naturally relies on. And while that's all fine and dandy, having bad technique with a push-up can eventually lead to pain and maybe even injury. And since this is such a basic exercise, we never really think about correcting that form or think about the fact that it could be the reason that we're feeling some sort of pain or even worse, injury. And to be honest, how you push in one exercise is how you push in all exercises. So the technique for a push-up theoretically is the same as a dumbbell bench press, a machine chest press, a barbell bench press. So how you do one thing is how you do everything. If you want to master pushing exercises, you should first master the most basic one, pushing your own body weight. So these are a few techniques that I'm going to teach you specifically to the push-up, and some can be translated into other pushing exercises. The biggest mistake that I see people make is that their elbows flare out when they lower down and then press back up. What happens there is essentially you're causing an internal rotation impingement on your shoulder joint, and that is going to lead to pain. And if you do that with more strenuous versions of push-up or pushing exercises, it could lead to injury. So this movement here, when you sort of like screw your hands outward, is external rotation. And then when you go inward, which is flaring your elbows out, that's internal rotation. And when you're doing a push-up or a bench press, that's going to cause this impingement in the shoulder joint, and you don't want that. So what you want is you want to externally rotate so your elbows actually face behind you when you do a push-up. I'll show you from the front because I think that's going to give you the best example. This is bad. So this is the internal rotation impingement. And then external rotation would be here where your elbows go about a 45-degree angle behind you. There's two things I want you to think of when you set up for your push-up. I want you to think about putting your index finger forward. So something like this, your index finger is forward, as opposed to what naturally happens. Most people, when they plant their hands on the ground, their middle finger is facing forward. So I want you to just imagine I didn't just tell you what I told you, and plant your hands on the ground like you're about to do a push-up. I would bet money that your middle finger is facing forward. That's going to make your natural movement bring your elbows out. So if you turn your hands outward a little bit and bring your index finger facing forward, that's going to be your starting point for your push-up. Next, I want you to imagine that there's a big sheet of paper on the floor underneath your palms. So you're going to plant your hands on this imaginary sheet of paper, and then think about twisting your arms outward as if you're trying to tear that piece of paper down the middle. And you're going to keep that activation the entire time you do your push-up. That's how you're going to basically screw your hands into the ground to bring your elbows back at this 45-degree angle, and you're going to keep that activation the entire time you do your push-up. So your push-up will look like this. It's not going to look like this, with my middle finger facing forward, out like this. A common misconception I learned that people rely on when we're doing different variations is, for example, when you're doing a diamond push-up, a lot of people think that your elbows are actually supposed to go out like this, but this same concept rings true for any variation of push-up that you do. If you're doing diamond push-ups, notice my elbows are flaring out to the side. I want to screw my arms outward without actually moving my hands, and that's going to allow my finger or my elbows to go back. You never want your elbows to flare out. Even if you're doing a wide arm push-up, you don't want your elbows to go out like this. You want to screw your hands into the ground. Imagine ripping that piece of paper in half underneath you, and you're going to keep your elbows going back. So that's the first thing. Elbows should be at a 45-degree angle. Imagine that you are ripping a long sheet of paper in half as you actively rotate your hands outward without actually moving them from the index finger facing forward position. Another thing I want you to think about is there's this subtle shift forward when you do a push-up that a lot of people don't realize. So I start with my hands a little wider than my shoulders, about here. This is going to be probably shoulder width. Boom. We start a hair wider than your shoulders, right? And then the wide arm push-up is technically like one hand distance away from that. But sticking to the traditional push-up, a hair wider than shoulder width, okay? And there's a slight shift forward. So it looks like this. As I go down, I shift forward. If I don't shift forward, it looks like this. This is me just going down and up. Okay, it's not inherently wrong, but what you want to do is you want to think about your thumbs being around, like in line with your nipples when you do your push-up. So your hands end up here, okay? Now watch again. See where my chest is? I'm going to shift forward slightly, and I'm going super low just so you can see my thumbs are basically touching my nipples, and I'll press back up. But this is the right depth for the push-up. You don't have to go all the way down. It's going to look like this. Slight shift forward and up. Okay, notice that my elbows are not flaring out. They're staying back. They're lining up with my chest, and I come back up. As opposed to if I just go straight down, it looks like this. It's a little awkward, okay? Make sure that you give just that slight shift forward. Next, you want to keep your body in a perfectly straight line the entire time, and you want to stay nice and active the entire time that you're lowering down and up. So keep your body in this plank position. Keep your body as stiff as a board. You are going to just literally lever your body down and up through the bending motion of your arms. You don't want there to be any hip drop. You don't want your butt sticking up in the air. So you want to squeeze your glutes and brace your core as if you're here and your best friend or a sibling that you always kind of go back and forth picking on each other. Imagine they're going to punch you in the gut and you want to guard your stomach. So squeeze your stomach, squeeze your butt, and then just keep your body just like a board, down and up. You don't want your hips to dip like this. It's not here. It's here. Okay? If you struggle on the pushing up part of the push-up, this is a game changer. A lot of people have a good amount of strength to lower themselves down, and they're even able to keep their body nice and straight. So it looks like this. But when they push up, their arms start to go, but either they don't have the core strength or they don't have the body awareness to keep that body in the plank shape. So if it's a strength thing, you're going to want to use this technique, but also strengthen your core. Do some forearm plank variations, do some straight arm plank variations, extended forearm planks, things like that. But when you're doing your push-ups, to continue to train your arm strength, what I want you to do is squeeze nice and tight, lower down with control, and then once you feel your body start to break on the way up, drop to your knees and push up like this. Come off your knees for your next rep, lower down with control, drop to the knees, press up. So you're still building strength, lowering down, but where you have a weak point, pushing back up, is when you're going to drop to your knees, make the movement a little bit easier, and then press back up. So those are the tips that I want you to think of when you're doing your push-up. A, fingers facing forward, index finger facing forward. B, think about ripping a large piece of paper underneath your hands in half. Keep your elbows at a 45-degree angle behind you, and then shift forward just a little bit so your thumbs are in line with your nipples. Keep your body in a straight plank shape, glutes engaged, core engaged. This is an active movement throughout your entire body. You're not loosey-goosey, just knocking out push-ups. You're squeezing your glutes, you're engaging your core, you're lowering down, You're pressing up with as much strength as possible. This is how you master the push-up. You take this technique with you no matter what variation you're doing. Diamond push-ups, wide arm push-ups, archer push-ups, shuttle push-ups, which are one of my favorite push-up variations. If you can master the strength and technique that I just explained to you, then you can take this to so many different levels of push-ups. It's going to make things very exciting and fun for you. So if you have any questions about anything that I mentioned, please leave them in the comments below. I'll get back to you. I can also share some other variations, but for the purpose of not making this video super long, I will not show you all those different variations. But if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If you found this helpful, please hit that like button. Do me a huge favor. Make sure to subscribe to my channel, maybe even share it with a friend who will also find this information helpful. I really appreciate you watching. See you next time.